Hey folks, welcome back to Moments in History. My name is Linda Shenton Matchett and I'm an author of Christian historical fiction. And if you are as much as of a history geek as I am, then you are in the right place because that's what I do here every Thursday around 6:45. I will share artifacts. I will talk about places, events, and different things that happened during World War II primarily. And I also talk about answers to your questions, whether it's about me as a writer or, again, other things that have to do with history. So if you do love history, you might want to hop over to my blog, which is located at www.lindashentonmatchett.com. And you'll find my blog there, which is lots of historical information, as well as book reviews and lots of other things that you may find of interest. So let us get on with tonight's episode. I'm very excited. I've got yet another artifact to share with you. It's been interesting for me to see just how many tidbits I do have around the house. I didn't realize how many things that I had collected over the years. And so I'm happy to share them with you. So this week I have a very, very cool item. What this is, I don't know, as you can see, the lettering on this is not showing up very well at all. But what this is, it says New Testament Protestant version. And then down here is the seal of the Department of War. And then down here, it says presented by the Army of the United States. The copyright, interestingly enough, is 1942, but equally interesting is that it was printed by the government printing office. So I think that's very interesting, certainly as of recently with all of the debate on separation of church and state, to see a religious piece printed on government paper. What I could find out that each branch of the military did have their own version of this. This is the Army version. And there is a Navy version that's blue and includes prayers for different levels. It was interesting seeing it online. Prayers for the midshipmen or prayers for different levels of, your captain, that kind of thing. So very, very interesting that each branch's edition had things that were specific to that branch. This one also has a letter, and all of them do. All of the New Testaments that were issued to the different branches in the military all had this same letter. And it says, the White House, Washington, March 6th, 1941. To the members of the Army, as Commander-in-Chief, I take pleasure in commending the reading of the Bible to all who serve in the armed forces of the United States. Throughout the centuries, men of many faiths and diverse origins have found in the sacred book words of wisdom, counsel, and inspiration. It is a fountain of strength and now, as always, on aid in attaining the highest aspirations of the human soul. Very sincerely yours, Franklin D. Roosevelt. So that was really interesting. And then the back, if I can hold this up for you, is a page called Do You Know Your Chaplain? And it is signed by the Chief of Chaplains, who went on to become a brigadier general. His name is Norman, see if I have this right, William Arnold, is who that is. And his letter says, this copy of the scriptures should initiate and promote a warm friendship between you and your chaplain. He has studied the Word of God for years and uses it daily for his own strength and comfort, and for the instruction of others. His love for the scriptures makes him your friend and guide. When he counsels you, he speaks with the knowledge and charity found in this little volume. A soldier who knows the Word of God and honestly tries to observe his laws is a man of power and influence among his fellows, and exalts his military service to the high level of religious faith, courage, and loyalty. So very interesting. This was issued to all servicemen and women in the Army, and again, the one for the Navy was issued to all folks who were serving in the Navy, Air Force, which is part of the Army, and then the Coast Guard and whatnot. Hello, Denise. Thanks for coming on board. I am talking about an artifact that I have, which is a small pocket-sized Bible that was handed out to all of the armed forces members during World War II. So this, I don't know if you can tell how little of it. It's actually the size of a 3x5 index card, and then it's about a ½ inch thick. And it was designed to fit in the front breast pocket of the, does he really? Jeff has his own Army Bible. You know, I was looking up online to see if this was still done, and apparently they are given out, but they are not given through the government. It's through a separate organization, which I thought was really interesting. That happened, I guess, in 2012. There was some sort of organization, and I'm not sure who, but protested the giving of religious materials, blah, blah, blah. And so that changed. So now I gather it's a private organization of some sort that does hand those out. But this one is interesting. It actually has a print error on it. And between where it should be Revelation chapter 6 through 16, okay, thanks for confirming that. But between chapter 6 and 16 of Revelation is actually missing, and we have Matthew chapters 5 through 15. So this is a misprint, which I thought was really interesting, and I wonder how many misprints were put out there, and if this individual that actually had the book read it enough to know that it was an error, if that's why I ended up having it, because it was given away. It was considered not worth very much, so that it was sold in the secondhand stores. But I thought that was really interesting. Also, there are other editions of this one that apparently had a page that had all 3 stanzas of the Star Spangled Banner, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then there are others that also have the Psalms in them. And again, this is the Protestant version, and there is a Catholic version as well that had daily prayers and something called Mass Clock Prayer that could be said by the soldier to unite himself spiritually to a Mass that was going on anywhere in the world. So the military being very aware that there were these 2 tenets of faith. And then I understand there was also publications that were Jewish. I don't know if it was the Torah, but from what I could tell, that there were also those types of religious books for those people as well. So I guess when the soldier came in and was inducted, part of that included finding out what his faith was and issuing him a particular pocket Bible. Interesting enough, there's another Bible that was known as the Heart Shield Bible, and they were used during World War II. And I don't know if this is one that could have been used. I couldn't quite see when I was doing my research how it actually worked, but it was a Bible about this size, and then there were 2 metal shields. Hey, Connie, how are ya? There are 2 metal shields that go on either side, and again, fits in the breast pocket. And then the idea is that it keeps the soldier safe and prevents the bullet from going through and injuring or killing the soldier. And I found very, very many YouTube interviews of veterans who had still had their Bibles with them, and some of them actually still had bullets in them, or it showed where the dent was that the bullet had struck this Heart Shield Bible and indeed had saved them. So it was very, very interesting. A lot of stories there. I was very interested to find out how long the U.S. had been issuing Bibles to their military folks. And that actually started early in the beginnings of our country. Almost as we were getting out of the American Revolution, there was some movement to do that for the soldiers. And then in 1817, the American Bible Society started supplying Bibles. And so they were an arm, they were not tied to the government, but they were the arm that was used by the government to issue Bibles to their soldiers. And eventually they became one of the largest distributors of the Bibles. Let's see. Oh, and another fact that I found out really interesting was during the Civil War, the government, the federal government, got together and decided that they indeed wanted to be able to issue Bibles to both the Union and the Confederacy. It was very important to them not to be bipartisan and to only give to the federal government. So they decided to, I'll tell you about that in just a sec, Connie. Yeah, the hard shell Bibles, they're called Heart Shield Bibles. Exactly. But what happened in the Civil War was the Bibles were being sent down to the Confederacy, but then they were being intercepted as contraband by the Union forces. So reports are that they're not sure exactly how many Bibles were actually able to reach the Confederate soldiers. So I think that's very interesting. And as I showed you, there was a letter from President Roosevelt in the front of this one. And then during World War I, there was a letter in the front from President Wilson as well as General Pershing. So very interesting. In the preface, William Wilson, who was a Presbyterian elder, which I did not realize, declared that the Bible is the word of life and urged soldiers to read the scriptures to find this out for themselves. So I thought that was really interesting. So, but something that I thought of while I was researching this, I don't know if you recall, but paper was not rationed during the war, but people and companies were highly and very strongly suggested to conserve paper. That paper was very important, and there were paper drives, and people turned in paper, whether it was newspapers, used news magazines, used note paper, whatever. It was just very aware of something they were conserving and asking people to turn in. So if you think about the fact that the government expected folks to conserve paper, and yet they used that paper, one of the projects, to supply these Bibles to the military. And if you may or may not know, but there were over 16 million servicemen and women. That's a lot of pages and a lot of Bibles. So I thought it was interesting that the government felt that even with the conservation of paper, that it was very, very important to print these and to send them out to the soldiers. As I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, Bibles are no longer distributed through the government. That was ceased in 2012, but they are indeed still sent out through private organizations. And my friend Denise's son is in the Army, an Apache pilot, and she indicated that he does have his own pocket Bible. So very excited to hear that is still happening today. So that's all I wanted to chat about today was my Bible. And Connie, there is a little bit of information about the Hard Shell Bible earlier in the broadcast. If you want to go through and replay, you can get that information in the broadcast. So thanks for stopping by Moments in History. Love that you ladies were here. And again, if you are not already associated to my blog, just hop over there and you can probably get more history than you actually wanted. So the address of that is www.lindashentonmatchett.com. Oh, and Colette, a mutual friend of ours, is the one who gave Jeff his pocket Bible. So very special, very, very special. So again, I'm Linda Shenton-Matchett, and I hope that I will see you here next week at 6:45, and we'll talk a little bit more about moments in history. Thanks, and have a blessed week.